See. Good afternoon, everybody. It's great to see everyone online. My name is Cody Sire, and I'm the team lead for the RCTLE College of Business Support team. It's great to see you from all over the states, and we're super happy to have you on board with our session with Dr. Roberts today. I'd like to highlight my teammates, Dr. Liz Cummins and Miss Linda Rowell, and I'll turn the floor over to Linda.
Well, hello, faculty, and welcome to the COB series. You are in for a real treat. Our guest speaker this afternoon is going to be the amazing Dr. Robin Roberts. She's a full-time faculty member, as you all may know, and she has been with the College of Business for a number of years. She has over 45 years of experience teaching, creating training and development programming for employees, as well as designing college level courses. She holds a doctorate degree in management from the University of Phoenix with a specialty in organizational leadership. In her spare time, she is very heavily involved in the community. She does community work with seniors as well as the homeless population. If you would like to learn more about or read more about her full bio, you can find it in the link. But with that being said, we're going to go ahead and get started and jump right on into it. So let's welcome to our virtual platform, Dr. Robin Roberts.
That's okay. You can call me whatever you want, as long as it's nice. Hi, everybody. Can you give me a thumbs up? You can hear me okay? Yeah. Oh, good, good, good. I am like so super happy to be here. And I know everybody usually kind of like says that, but you all don't know. Whenever I can get with folks that work with me and work in the COB and I can see your faces, it's like we were just talking earlier, but it's that water cooler time that we can come together and we can share and have fun. And so I am not going to do death by PowerPoint, but I do want to cover some things I think will be fun for you and for your students. And so when they asked me to do this, part of it was how can we make the classroom really engaging? And that's really what I'm going to talk about today. And I'm pretty sure you'll see that throughout most of the series that come out of our fabulous RCTLE, right? Give them a handshake, a clap. Just for inviting us in, to really stop in our day and get some nuggets of information and resources, I think is just credible. So what I'm going to actually talk about today is globalization and migration and that paradox for our students and even for faculty members. And so I'm going to share my screen. I hope I can share my screen. And I want to make sure that you all can see my presentation. So can you see my presentation? A thumbs up, you can see my presentation?
Yep.
Yep. Okay, I'm going to put it into presentation mode. And can you see the slides or can you see the presenter mode? Slides?
Slides, yes.
Oh, great, great, great. So the paradox of globalization, what in the world does that even mean? You see all these people on this slide, and what it represents is all the people that are students, and even you as faculty members, how all the people that we come in contact with daily. When we were working in physical locations, it was really, I think, a better contact. But even in virtual spaces, especially since COVID, we have all of this contacting going on all day long. And when that happens, we are then experiencing what I call the globalization paradox. What does that mean? That means that, globalization in itself means something that has gone international. It could be a business, it could be a corporation, it could be anything that has gone into international borders. But I want to explain that international globalization does not happen just because something physically has moved. It could be virtual contacts or people migrating internationally into the spaces where you work or where your students might work or where we all might learn. And we understand that from Embry-Riddle in terms of being worldwide. So we don't have to leave our physical space to experience globalization or crossing beyond international borders. We could do that right where we are in these virtual spaces. And the paradox of that is that globalization is a really cool thing because you can share resources, you can learn new things. But what happens with humans is that we cross over into spaces, whether we're going global or migrating beyond our local, national, regional borders. We are experiencing a new set of people that might be different from us. And that is the paradox. This is that as good as globalization could be on the economy and the sharing of resources, sometimes we move into spaces that we are not mature enough to handle. Thus, we see all of the things that we're seeing in the world in terms of people not understanding how to be culturally fit or emotionally fit or culturally competent to be able to handle all the divergent people within the same spaces of them, physically and virtually. And so what I do is I call that the divergent convergence. And if you imagine all of these people coming together, either again in physical spaces or virtual spaces, they're all coming in, and we think naturally that people can assume that they will be able to get along socially, that they'll be able to do their work cohesively and collaboratively, but we all know that that doesn't happen. So let me back up for a little bit. The thing about it is that as we come into these spaces, we're mostly focused in on the tasks, and not really the people. And so when we are doing this, what happens in our brains is we get into a fight or flight situation where we want to be able to be valued for our contribution, and we think that we are valuing others people's contribution. But the point is that we may not be doing that. And so how does that how does that help us to think about our students and what they may be experiencing? I'm going to cover that in the next slide. So your students may be having experiences with having to be in this divergent convergence of people. People that are like them, they think. People that are unlike them, they think. But the idea is that everybody's coming into this same space. And so everybody's got their ideas flowing, their creativity, their innovation. They want to be able to get in and do their task. They're excited and may have affinity for their organization, or they may even come to class really excited. But the reason why I picked these types of graphics is this. When you see, when we're all coming in, and I want you to think this through with me. First of all, if you will lean into this information with me, because I know sometimes if we are in virtual spaces, especially if we're not on screen, we will have devices around us or things happening. And so we are multitasking, but multitasking can distract us from what we were actually, kind of wanting to focus in on. So lean in with me on this one. So you see all the people with all the head bubbles coming out, and what that is representing is all of the information that people have to take in and output. So we're thinking about, even while we are sitting with our task, and even while you're sitting here with me now, you may have multiple things going through your mind as you are also attempting to listen to me. The one thing about our thoughts is that they are not housed in in our physical brains. Thoughts can be interjected anywhere, and most people do that every single day. We have learned in our highly technological environments to have our brains kind of scattered and spread all over. So I want you to imagine with me that when people are working or even in a classroom setting, that all of these things are converging so that nobody's really, believe it or not, paying as close attention as we would think that they should be. I like the saying from the single best I'm gonna read it. The single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it's taken place. And that's the same thing that we do with learning. We think that because we see our students maybe producing something, that learning is taking place, not understanding that physically we can see people available, or maybe we can see them in our discussion questions, or if they are posting assignments. We are assuming learning is taking place, but we have no idea of truly how scattered the mind is, how scattered the brain is. And what we would like to do in terms of engagement is trying to make things within the classroom so that the students truly are putting forth as much energy and effort as they can. What does that have to do with the paradox of globalization and migration? Because students are dealing with such a divergent convergence of people, sometimes they get emotionally drained, or mentally drained, or even physically drained from having to manage the paradox of being able to share resources and be innovative and creative with people across the borders. But the problem is that our brains can become fatigued from that, so that by the time they come to the class, you can see that they're producing things, but it could be mostly from rote learning rather than from learning that is taking place that is really memorable, learning that is very practical, and learning that is very applicable. And so in order to kind of help bring all these bubbles into into something coherent where we know the learning is taking place, or we can activate a more focused learning, then we can do things that I call what's called humanizing the learning. Globalization and migrating, again, globalization meaning across international borders, migration meaning going into places outside of our local or national or our proximity. Then what happens is we get into spaces and begin to have this fragmented thinking. And so it becomes entropic. It becomes something that it can be, again, very big. And so what we want to do is take that funnel and kind of funnel it back in so we can have people with more focused attention. And no matter what you're teaching, you can use techniques that make people kind of take their thoughts patterns and sort of bring them back into their more mindful and fully present with the learning, so that the learning is not as rote as it should be, but it is really meaningful and they're getting something out of it and you can see the application. One of the things that's happening in the research of human behavior, and specifically when it comes to people who are in truly global environments and who are migrating their work or migrating into beyond their borders, is that when they are introduced to something new, we don't see quite as much as sustaining behavioral change that makes that allows for civility and less biased actions happening within the classroom as well as within the organization with which they might be working. And so how does this look? Imagine this scatter plot is all of the thoughts converging in one spaces, and they're just kind of like hitting each other and having to deal with so much. So what that might look like is if you are on a Zoom call and you see all the boxes that are on there and you are trying to listen, but you are also your mind might be wandering off into what am I going to do next? Or even now, if what Dr. Roberts is saying is even important to me, your mind is constantly moving. And so it's hitting other minds that are also in the same space. And therefore, that's where this convergence comes in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to take you through an activity that will show you exactly what I mean. So again, what I'm going to ask you to do is lean into this with me. And if you can come on screen, it would be so great. So if everybody can try to come on screen, I'm going to give you a few minutes to do that. If you can come on screen, that'll really help. And we'll all look like the Hollywood squares, I know, but this will help us to really understand what I'm talking about with this divergence, convergence, with having to deal with so much in the big processes of being in a globalized environment or migrating across borders. So thank you for all of those who came on screen. So here's what I'd like for you to do. Here's some activities that will help no matter what subject you're teaching. Here's an activity that might help understand how to really kind of funnel those focuses, that focused attention back in. So here's what I'd like you to do. I want you to play along with me. So I need you to be able to find a pen or pencil or a piece of paper, because you're going to write. I'd like you to write something. So give me a thumbs up when you have that pen or pencil and something to write with. You got it? Awesome. Come on, everybody's got a thumbs up. I'm looking for thumbs up all over the place. You've got that pen, pencil. Wonderful, wonderful. So here's what I'd like for you all to do. I want you to take on that, hopefully the paper is blank. I want you to use your dominant hand, and I want you to print your first and your last name. With your dominant hand, please print your first and your last name. Okay, wonderful, wonderful. You've printed your first and your last name. Wonderful. Okay, now switch hands and put the pen or the pencil in your less dominant hand, and I'd like for you to print I could see all people, they're already smiling like, what in the world is she asking me to do? I'm asking you to print your name with your less dominant hand. Oh, I can see the faces like, what? I love it. I love it.
It's not pretty at all.
Wait, 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 wait.
This now looks like my son's handwriting.
Oh, it gets better? Oh, okay.
No, this is bad.
I'm
So
done.
here's
It
what
looks pretty rough, but I'm done.
so here's what I need you to do next. I need you to put that pen or pencil back in your dominant hand, and I want you to write your regular signature. Just write your regular signature. And I appreciate you guys going along with me on this.
And I'm sorry, I'm in my jammies, so
Oh,
that's
that's okay. That's okay. Now I want you to put that pen or pencil back in your less dominant hand and write your signature.
okay.
What is she trying to do to us? Heather's like, I don't even know how to hold a pen in my less dominant hand. What are you asking me to do? Awesome.
Still writing.
I expected that.
Okay. Whoa. That doesn't look like an.
So here's the next part of this. This is what I want you to do. Now you're going to have to put that pencil down. And this is what I'd like for you to do. I want each of you, as I'm giving the next instructions, to put what I say in the chat. Okay, so now you're going to go type in away. So what I want you to do is describe the attributes of what your dominant handwriting printed version looks like. So for instance, my printed dominant handwriting looks neat, solid, whatever you come up with at least 2 or 4, but I want you to put it in the chat. So my producers are Linda, Liz, and Cody. If you will look in the chat room, you will see people are putting in what they are saying, and you guys can put in there too. What did your dominant hand attributes look like?
Angie says consistent spacing. Kelsey, clear, uniform, neat. Misha, straighter line. Raquel, dominant attributes are controlled. William, oh, he went by me. Let's see, what did you say? Neat, solid, clear. Cody says uniform.
Awesome.
Yeah, and clarity from Francis.
So now I want you to do is tell me about the effort. Was it effortless? Did it take a short amount of time? I don't want to coach you, but tell me the effort that was put into writing with your dominant hand.
Linda said easy peasy.
Easy peasy.
Short, easy, not much. Yes, Tammy, short, yeah. Sandy, my printed dominated hand looked clear, neat, clarity, no effort.
Awesome.
Francis says no effort. Yeah.
Awesome. So now let's switch. Describe your less dominant hand attributes. What did that look like? The printed version.
Caitlin says sloppy. Mariella says hot mess. Shaky, yikes. Yeah, from Kelsey. Tammy says shaky, crooked. Danielle says messy. I would say juvenile for sure. Celeste says inconsistent size of letters. Sandy says my left hand look ugly, can't read. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Now let's switch back. Your signature. What does your natural signature look like? Go ahead and type it in. Give me the attributes. Fluid, all over the place.
Fluid. Yeah. Caitlin says fluid. Mariella says like a signature. Misha says a mess. Are we talking about the last one too? Somewhat readable. Yeah. Sometimes my signature doesn't exactly look that neat. Francis says somewhat readable. Kelsey says loopy. William says can read it.
What about your less dominant signature? What does that look like?
Not legible, jagged. No, Heather says no idea. No idea what it says. Mariella, real hot mess. Angie says jagged. Linda says reflects a 100-year-old woman. Raquel says no fear of forgery. Sandy,
like
yeah,
like
less
that.
dominated, can't read, chicken scratch.
I like that.
Yeah,
like
William,
that.
large print, a very large print scattered. Yeah.
So imagine that, you're even if your students are online, they have to come in and they're dealing with whatever you're teaching. And you can use what I'm about to do to sort of funnel them in, but help them to stay engaged, because it's a kind of a shock, because it's out of the norm for them to be able to kind of scatter their brains. It'll bring them back in and make them really think. So here's what I'm going to tell you. So I use this kind of activity in the classes, all the classes that I teach, but mainly in leadership. And I tell them listen to me carefully. All the attributes that you write about with your dominant hand is how you might see people that you tend to gravitate to. They're effortless. You see all you guys, you see how you tuned right into me, right? They're effortless. It's easy for me to get to them. We get along, and then people who are unlike you, that you think are so dissimilar to you, you treat them like what you write with your dominant hand. It's too messy for me to get involved with them. It's too sloppy. It takes a lot of effort. Now, take what I just said and see how is that something you can use in your topic, in your classes, to sort of bring them in from all of the stuff that they have to deal with. And to me, that is the paradox, that we have these people that come in, they want to learn from us, but if we don't get something that kind of snatches them back into reality, then we're just dealing with somebody whose brain is still all scattered and maybe fatigued from everything they've had to deal with today. So again, if you think about that, what I do with my leadership class is say, what then is the detriment to you if you are treating people like you did with your less dominant hand? So I'll ask you, if I were to have said that to you, what are some of the things that you think about? So you can shout it away, but I'd like for at least a couple of you, at least two people. If I said to you that with your dominant hand, you tend to migrate to people like that, who are easy for you. It doesn't take any effort. It's clear, that's how you gravitate to people. And then people that you think are dissimilar from you, then what you do is you kind of stay away because they're sloppy, they're messy. It's not too much of it's too much of an effort for you to deal with. What would you be thinking if I said that to you? Two people. You can unmute and talk.
I guess I can say something. Hello, everyone.
Hey!
Actually, it's kind of hard when you're talking about handwriting as opposed to human emotion and feelings, because that's one thing we can't separate. That person could be as I said, the biggest hot mess. And I want to share and this is how I view my life too. I'm going to share the hot mess. The top one is my dominant, and then the bottom is my less dominant. Yes, some of you may say it doesn't even look that different. Yes, one looks a little better than the other, even on the signature side. So for a lot of us who may be a little conscious of, there's differences in the world, and that's what makes us unique. And just like that person would want respect because of uniqueness, hot mess does not necessarily mean a bad thing.
Absolutely.
So to me, it's hard when you're dominant hand, because we have to take into account that human being and emotion. So I'm having a little hard time with, what you mean my dominant? They're a human being, they have feelings, they have life stories, walk a mile in my shoe kind of thing. Perfect. So that's kind of so hard for me, because, how do you know where I've been if you haven't walked a mile in my shoes? Absolutely. And the only way you could do it is by people. That is your, not because they're above or below, but because you're equal human beings. That's just my 2 cents.
I love that.
Love it. Love it. Somebody else, did anything resonate with you after I kind of gave you the information about the dominant hand, less dominant hand?
Yeah. You know what, Robin, I thought about one of my students that I had last week. And when you said it, she is difficult. And she mentioned the fact that she shouldn't have to do her homework or participate because she's very worldly. And every time when I deal with her, it's an issue. I almost like to have to get my mind set mentally. So I'm guilty. That's me. Yes. And I didn't realize this until this exercise, until you brought it up today. Oh, goodness. Oh.
William, thank you, Sandy.
Oh, goodness.
I have a comment. Dr. Kessler. What I'm finding, and I really like your example, you know, you made us write our name. We had to listen to you, auditory, visual, I'm watching, because you said, now focus on me. So you pulled us in with the visual. I can hear you with the auditory, and then the kinesthetic learning is the hands-on writing. So, which is one of the reasons I wanted to take this. I want to find more ways to use all three learning styles when I'm communicating. I don't know about you, but for me personally, I seem to get more dialed in to where a person's coming from if I can get feedback from all three avenues. Because sometimes I miss stuff. I don't know. My wife tells me that. So, you know, so I want to make sure that just because somebody looks like they're okay, and I know someone else mentioned it doesn't mean they are okay. And with
Yes.
COVID and all the things going on, I'm trying to incorporate all three learning styles because I'm not sure which learning style is dominant with that student. So I'm just assuming I need to give them all three.
Absolutely. And so, William, if you just do the same kind of thing, though, every class, all the time, it's rote. And we don't really know if learning has taken place. And Sandy, you know what? I was thinking about what you said. And oftentimes what will happen is, and I'm going to get into this a little later, we set our brains because of the experience that we have. And that is the experience that we kind of expect to have every single time. And so what happens? So remember, I told you all the brains and the fragmentation. And I told you that what happens is that our amygdala is always in fight and flight mode. And so you might already be clenching up for this fight that never happens, but you've already done, it's already there for you to have to deal with when it is. And that's the less dominant hand. What happens is when we don't when we don't hear things like this and we don't get ourselves to facing conflict, it doesn't help us to grow and to learn about our own self. And so the other thing I was going to say is with the written, the reason why I had you to write, even with your dominant hand, your second grade teacher would probably be so mad about how you doing your signature now compared to when you first learned. And so over time, guess what happens? We get sloppier. We get familiar with people, and which means we get sloppier in our ability to connect. And we just assume that things that we are familiar with is okay now with that same person when it might not be. And the thing about it, remember I told you all the brains are out. They're not going to say anything to you. Why? Because they don't want to face conflict. They're in fight and flight mode. And it's like we hear the sound, the saying that says, choose your battles wisely. And we probably even teach that. But the thing is that we need to not so much think about the person that's conflicting, but how we are like that sloppy writing or that familiarity we've come with our own dominant hand that almost looks just as sloppy as our less dominant. The bottom line is that we need to kind of focus in and tunnel in and really examine the here and now and what we can do to better the communication and the relating and the learning. So if you think about the lesson that dominant hand, left dominant hand, what I want you to think about next is there any facet of that you can incorporate into your class so that you can tunnel your students in? For instance, I actually did this dominant hand, less dominant hand in my online class. I did a video. I explained to them what to do. I put a table in the video that showed what my attributes were, and then I left them to answer it throughout the week. And then I gave them the information at the end of the week that I just gave you. And boy, you should have seen the discussions flow after that. There was just so much that came out of that because I was teaching them something about humanizing. It's what I call it, humanizing the information, so that even though all of this clashing and diverging convergence is happening, it's like Mariella said, it's people. You're still coming across humans who still want to be valued, still want to be respected as you all are completing your task. And so no matter what you're doing, whether you're working in a group in your classroom, or you're with your teams or groups where you work, or even at home, you're recognizing that these are real people with real lives. So how might you use just this activity, how might you use it in your classroom? You can chat it away in the chat box, but I would love for at least one or two of you to be able to answer that question out loud before I go into my next activity.
I am going to use this example tonight in my Eagle Vision class.
Ooh,
I
awesome.
am going to use that. It's a great exercise, and you've opened up my eyes with that, because you're right. I don't really think about, I never thought of it that way. So I'm going to use this tonight. I'm very excited about using it.
Thank you. You can use away, use away, use away. Anyone else?
Mariella in the chat box said classroom exercises. William said create discussion response videos for each student.
Absolutely, absolutely. So one other thing that I do that I think has been able to really kind of hone people in and really kind of give them the focus is this next exercise that I'm going to take you through. So if you all can see me on the video, what I'd like you to do now is put in the chat box anything that you can see about me that you would tag a label, because you know we live in a hyper label society, so much so that when we actually see people, even if we see their avatars, our brain, believe it or not, automatically focuses in and begins to provide a label for them. For instance, my oldest son has Down syndrome, and before, the term for people like in his community, they would call him special needs. Well, now in sociology, they don't call them special needs anymore because they found out that we all have special needs. They actually call them differently abled. And I like that because he is differently able than everybody else, but he is certainly able to do as much as he can in his capacity. So if you were just to look at me, what do you think you or anybody else would say about just the physical attributes that you see of me? You talk about my skin color, you can anything. What do you see? Go ahead and chat away. Outgoing, friendly, wears glasses, smart. Keep going, keep going. Just anything that you could, if your brain has picked up anything about me, go ahead and chat away in the. And I like that. I like that. Wonderful, wonderful. Anything else?
Strong woman, ERAU spirit, friendly, athletic, wear glasses / smart, outgoing / friendly, strong leader, strong, very intelligent, athletic, style, organized.
Awesome, awesome. Now, in terms of race or ethnicity, what do you think people, go ahead and chat away. What else do you think somebody would label me as? And it's okay, whatever you say is fine with me, doesn't matter.
Tammy says black.
Is that it?
Linda says African American. Raquel says woman of color. Mariella says Hispanic.
Yeah.
William says Afro American. Sandy says strong African American.
Absolutely. So here's what I'm going to do. On purpose, I am going to turn my video off. And as I do this, I'm going to actually explain what I do when I do this in my classroom, whether I'm in a physical or if I am in the virtual community. And what I do is I actually have them have sticky notes. And in those sticky notes, they put all of those labels all over my faces so that usually I just have a dark or blank Hollywood square, but now you can see my avatar. And so what I would like for you to do is now for everybody to turn off their cameras. Just turn off your cameras. Everybody turn off your cameras so that we cannot see anyone. And so what I say to my students is this, is that without seeing me, even if we didn't have our avatars and all you could hear was my voice, and this is where I want you to chat. What would it be important for you in terms of relating to me if we were in the same class and in the same group, or if we were working in the same team at an organization? What would be something you would want to know about me if you didn't see my avatar in order for us to just work together collectively, cohesively, collaboratively? Oh, wonderful. Good, good, good. Clear and effective communicator. Yes, yes. If I was flexible, what else? Think about if we had to work every single day, all day, and all that we could see each other was in this square box. I hope she's
nice. I hope she's nice and patient. Tone of voice. Sandy says approach. Angie says preferred name pronoun. Francis responsive to ideas.
Would you want to know anything about my family or where I come from or my hobbies, or what would you want to know? A sense of humor like that?
Sense of humor.
Yeah, time zone. Yeah, where in the heck are you?
That's a good
one. Wonderful, wonderful background. And so what I tell people is, thank you for all of that in the chat room. You can put your videos back on. what I share with my students is that we are not these blank square places, that once we become conscious, our biases can come in. And before we even get to know a person, all these labels cover them so that you don't see their face and you don't know anything about them. It becomes a kind of a struggle in our brains. It really does. We're still in that fight and flight just by sometimes just seeing a person versus really knowing them. And so I do this actually again in my classroom because it kind of tunnels people back into the humanization of, hey, even when I go out into this globalized world, even if I'm migrating my talent or having somebody migrating their talent in, this is still something that still a person that I can value. I can do what's called I can do strength finding. I can do appreciative inquiry and see where I can appreciate more. And so based on this particular activity, is there anything that you think is usable for your classroom in terms of maybe humanizing? I don't care if you're doing math or language or speech or statistics. Is there anything that you can do to kind of shape the information around the fact of you are going to use this information to work with other humans, especially in this real machine and human working world? Anyone? Nothing? Hey, go ahead.
And I was going to say with certain classes, and I say with any class, math, engineering, real world settings where you're not only taking a math or engineering component, but also factoring in that human emotion and factor. So
Yes.
make it every day, because every day is dealing with human emotions and human beings.
Yeah, absolutely. And Celeste, I'll clarify. So for instance, I oftentimes get called in to do this type of humanizing in engineering classes where the students may go off to be engineers. But what happens is they're so good at their tactical task that sometimes they'll get promoted into a leadership role, but they have no idea how to really handle the human side of the engineering field. Did that help, Celeste? I saw that your question, does that help? So if you are teaching something that has Cool. If you're teaching something that has a math or statistics, we call humanizing that data or humanizing it so that, again, you can kind of tunnel people in to say, you're not going to work in isolation. And the way that you're going to use this information that you're learning in the classroom is this way, especially if you're going to cross geographical borders and the people that you're going to work with, maybe from another country, another culture, another type of human system. Is that making sense? Does everybody understand? Awesome, 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 awesome. So yes, using it in doing these things again to sort of bring things in makes so much more sense than understanding that, we as people, we come across a whole lot of information every single day, and just being able to manage it so that it's not rote and it is really impactful makes a lot of difference. So that's really all I had for today. Anything that
I want more.
That's all I have for today. I just wanted to make sure that we brought this into the classroom setting because it's so easy just to go out and start teaching and not really understanding that there really should be a way that we should humanize all of the learning that we have. So any other comments?
Can I make a shameless plug?
You sure can.
I'm actually offering, I think it's a webinar through Michiko Bosny about civil discourse.
Explain that.
Civil discourse, how to speak with others when you completely disagree and be nice about it.
Awesome, awesome. I'm sorry, I had to pull my shade down. All I could see was the sun. That's awesome. And what course do you teach that in?
It's a webinar.
Oh, a webinar.
So Gosney, which is like training for faculty and staff.
Mm-hmm.
Is it coming up soon, or is it already out there where I can register?
Oh, actually, you can go and register. I've been told that one section's already full. I don't know about the other one, but it's being offered March 17th, 31st, and April 7th.
Okay. I'll definitely try to get in on that. I'm interested. This is great.
Yeah, and did you guys see what Cody wrote? Cody, you're gonna have to expound on that one. That was like so good.
Yeah, I think I really feel like, especially in the COVID climate, it's super easy in general to make assumptions about people. And I remember when the pandemic first started, my husband was on a remote tour and I had my kids with me in the grocery store, but you were only supposed to be adults in there. But I had to keep them because I was single parenting at the time. And this lady was like, "Don't you know your children aren't supposed to be here?" And I was just having a difficult day. I was like, "I'm not here with my children because I think it's fun. I'm here with my children because I have to be here with my children." And so I think it's sometimes, when you make those general assumptions without knowing a person. Or growing up, my friend Kate was 6'4", and everyone's like, "Oh, you must be the best basketball player." And she was the least coordinated person you've ever met in your life. So it's kind of sometimes that humble reminder to not project what you think that person is or what they're going through, where they're at in their journey, whether it's that day, that week, that chapter in their life, and just getting to know them, or at least giving them the chance, to let them know, why you're there. Hey, did you know you shouldn't be here with your children? Or let me help you. So I think it's just assumptions in general. Kindness can go a lot of way in our current climate.
Oh, absolutely. And I like the way you put that too. Celeste agrees with you, Cody, because she puts that organization considered a cost to train management. So, it's really interesting to me that organizations put less money into developing people to socialize with each other as they do in something, a tangible item or a tangible product. But this is where, we can come in and say, no matter what, the people side of the business is typically the hardest. But what has happened is we have called that soft skills. So when the people hear the word soft, what do you think they think about? If you heard soft skills, what does that mean? Go ahead,
Now,
and you can.
how you
Right.
relate to one another, those nonverbal communication, your tone, or
Mhm.
just how you interact within a group of people. Um, just those skills that are conveyed with you not necessarily saying anything,
But
kind
here's
of
the
like,
thing. They see the word soft, and
we,
what is that connotation?
It seems like it's lower down in the hierarchy, that it's not as important, it's maybe not as
I
distinct,
like that.
all those
Hmm.
things.
I
Yeah.
like that. I like that.
I'll call you back.
I like that. And so what, Liz, what
Absolutely.
happens is that honestly, if you were to think about your day, probably 80% of your day is in the people side.
Mhm.
And so it's not as soft. So really in human resources, they've kind of changed that language to say more technical skills and human skills, so that the word soft doesn't mean that, like people are saying, that it's weak, it's less important. Because I can tell you, ask anybody leading a team of people, and what did they say? They get more exhausted from the people side than they do from really if the task side. Because if I could just come in and do my job, then I wouldn't have the problems I have with having to do the people management. You know what I mean?
Right,
And
right.
so, what's important for us in terms of our students is that no matter what you're teaching, if we don't teach this people's side, then they too won't get the information of how soft the soft skill really isn't. It's very difficult to be able to manage a relationship with so many people who are so varied, thus the divergent convergence. And you know what will happen? If what happens in the divergent convergence is the amygdala will automatically shift you into your bias, because it's the difficulty of relating to people who are unlike us begins to just put you into that safe mode. And I'll safely go into whatever I need to do in order to feel safe. If I have to gravitate to the same people, if I even have to operate in my own biases, I will do that in order to avoid the conflict that I might, find myself in having to deal with somebody unlike myself.
Right.
Is that
I think
making
we
sense?
should, I think we should rename soft skills to strong soft skills.
Something. And one last point that I want to make, because I don't know about you, but I'm guilty of this as well. So this is why I teach this. So with my students, I'll tell them, I'll say, now I need you to focus in on me, because I know what you're doing. You're scrolling. And they'll laugh and giggle like, what's scrolling? And I do this because what I do is I make videos even for my online classes, and they'll see them video and back to me. And so scrolling is this. So pretend like you're sleeping, and you're in your bed and it feels so good, and then you wake up and you're conscious. What are some of the first things that your brain starts doing when you become conscious? When you start thinking, what do you think about? I like that, Angela, critical skills. What do you think about when you first come awake and your brain starts to think? The to-do list, coffee.
Chatter, clutter, goes from 0 to 100.
I'm looking at the chat. Is it Saturday? You guys are funny. So what happens is I call that scrolling. Doesn't your brain start doing this? And all the bubbles and stuff are coming up. Is it still 20? Is it still 22? That's so good. But your brain starts moving, right? So here's what happens. I want you to see this. Your brain is moving, and now you just do what you habitually do, right? You get up and you have all your routines. And so while your brain is still scrolling, now you're going to sit down and do whatever you normally do. And sometimes you don't even know what happened between the time you got up and started moving until you sat down. You just found yourself there. So imagine if we were physically driving to work. Do you know that mostly everybody on the road is scrolling so that we don't even know how we got to work? We just kind of wind up there. Autopilot, everything's on autopilot. So you remember the head with the funnel with the bubbles? So if we're all scrolling and we're not paying attention, what are we missing? And it's almost, I know the more I say this, I'm thinking everybody on the road that's driving is probably scrolling. Like, who's paying attention on the road? But this unfocused and autopilot makes it so that we're not really seeing what we need to see. And I have a exercise that I do with my students. I put an extra word in a lot of the stuff that I'm writing, and they never see it. And then I bring it back to their attention because they've scrolled in on autopilot so much, they're missing. And so if I were to ask you this question that I asked them, tell me how important it would be for you. And I say to them, that extra word was very visible. It was there. How did you miss it? What would be your answer? I'm sorry, I'm reading the.
Yeah. I think I would say muscle
says-
memory.
What'd you say, Cody?
Muscle memory. It's just like you said, the autopilot, and it's just you just think you know what to expect, and so you just again assume.
So you see what you want to see, and you hear what you want to hear. You learn what you want to learn. Are you seeing what I'm saying? We're reverting to our very primitive self and we're not really getting a whole lot out of what we're doing. And the thing about it is they've invested time, energy, and emotions into this classes to getting this degree. We want to make sure that we pull them into that present and into that learning so that they're really getting something that's applicable to where we see whatever changes to be seen in their growth, in their, in what they're learning versus them just coming through and, just in this rote mode, in this scroll mode, in this automatic mode, just to get a degree. Because the thing is that the learning that they're taking away has to be applied or should be being applied somewhere. And so the actuality is that we as faculty members, the more we can pull them present with that learning, the better off we know that they are in terms of actually applying it and growing and developing in it. Francis, you say you have trained to not miss the words, but even then can miss things. Yeah, absolutely. And I can tell you, for instance, this might be very pertinent. There was a discussion that I had with the class that I'm teaching now, which is organizational development. And in this course, we were reviewing a NASA data, a document that talked about the Challenger accident. And one of the students said that he met an astronaut after the Challenger who came in and said, well, if you look at all of the times that the space shuttles went up, we have only a 2% accident rate, 98%, safety rate. And so I said to the student, 2% accidents within the aviation could be hundreds of lives. 2% is not good in certain situations, you know what I mean? That means people lost their lives. And the student was like, oh, I didn't think about it that way. Because he was looking at the data and understanding, 98%, safety, that's like great. Like, no, 2% means that, how many people lost their lives. So you see how you have to kind of humanize that data and kind of pull people back in. So is anything that I've said like in the last 5 minutes, has it resonated with you? And if so, can you just unmic and tell me how that might resonate with you and what you can do for it in your classroom? Angela says such a great point. Being present, it's so challenging for us and our students. Yeah, because we're always scrolling and on autopilot. Even now, like I told you, it's hard if you come into even a Zoom meeting, how many people start picking up their phones, or they're, especially if they're not on video, we have no idea how much of the information they're actually taking away for themselves, or if it's really, pertinent, but you want to make sure that you, say enough of what you can say to help people to be fully present, even with that information. Oh, you guys are so good. That's awesome.
Yeah, Mariella says add human factor and loss to statistics. William says create and use focus exercises, and Cody says being present, a good reminder to hear and practice.
Awesome, awesome. Well, for real, that's all I had. I hope you guys have been able to take away something from what's said.
Yes. Dr. Roberts, on behalf of the RCTLE team, we just want to just say thank you so much for this very enlightening talk. The COB series is something that's new in the College of Business, and it's the brainchild of our very own Cody Sire. And she created it with the mindset of creating this virtual playground of sorts for faculty to not just have conversations about pedagogy, but anything that might be of interest to the faculty, to your peers and colleagues. So I do thank you so much for sharing this information. To the faculty, it's our hope that you'd walk away with at least one ideal or one strategy that you can implement right away in your classroom. And if you can't implement it right away, maybe on Friday. Our next presentation is going to be taking place, I believe it's going to be on March 17th. Interesting discussion. It's going to be a student panel. They'll be talking about their viewpoint of the student experience in the classroom, sharing some information based on the student experience and their perspective. So that should be great if you want to learn more about that. Or if you want to be a presenter, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. If you look in the chat box, you should see some links that will take you straight to our website, because we do have one. We have additional resources there. And if you want to contact us to be a presenter, let us know. So again, thank you guys so much for coming. And if you have any feedback for us as well, please let us know.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate for you taking time out and listening to me. It was a blast.
Thank you so much.
So much.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
All right,
Good.
thank you.
Stay safe, stay well.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.
Linda, can I ask one question?
Bye.
This is Sandy.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you guys going to be doing any webinars on the high reliability organizations or the neuro leadership?
We would love to partner with you on that.
Oh, no, I'm not the subject expert. At Dr. Robin for that.
Well, you know what? I am actually a part of the Neuro Leadership Institute. I do most of what I do is brain-based, because I understand that the brain is what really leads behavior. So I do a lot of study with the Neuro Leadership Institute. I don't even know if you've heard of them, but it's
I get information from there, but I didn't know if it was free or not. So
most of it isn't, and it's very expensive, but because it's all neuro. They do have some called Your Brain at Work every Friday. They have a free webinar. So please attend those, because those are amazing. But I actually teach both of the things that you just mentioned. But we got to have different people come on,
I know. Well, if you're definitely doing anything, I'm really interested in the high reliability organizations, because I used to work at the Savannah River plant, and I was a lab technician there at the time. So I still have that interest on that. But thank you so much. This was welcome. You made my day with this, and I had a chance to see the ladies who I've
yes.
I don't get to see them.
Yes.
I want to talk to you. Thank you so much. This was
you're welcome.
Great. I will be coming to more of these. Definitely.
Awesome.
Thank you. You're
thank you.
welcome.
Spread the word.
Yes.
Oh, I am.
Thank you.
Thank you.